Hello everyone, and welcome to the last topic of today's Power Hour. I'm here today with Igor Samardziski. How's it going, Igor?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
I've been following what's been going on. This is a really interesting content. Very good flow today, very good flow.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy. It's been some really interesting sessions so far.
Nice.
And before we start the last topic today, I just want to mention that I have the laptop here in front of me. I'm keeping an eagle eye on the chat. So if there are any questions, I'm going to see them, and we'll make sure to try to bring them up today. We have a last 30 minutes to go. So why don't we get started? The topic today of the last session is we're going to take a look at addiction. Microtransaction games versus harmful gambling behavior. And to open up the panel today, I just wanted to give some context to what we are talking about today, and why are we making this comparison.
Sure. Well, I mean, as you know, I've had the experience of overzealously. Sure. I've had the experience of overzealously playing with the microtransactions in the past, which got me interested in what that industry is made of and what it's built by. It got me interested in what in addiction in itself. So from the history of obviously around gambling and what we needed to do in order to prevent addictive behavior and manage and curb addiction in individuals, it was quite interesting to me to expose myself to addictive behavior that was completely just unmanned. Not only unmanned, it was almost impossible to manage it myself. It was impossible to stop and put stop checks and stop loss and so on. So I kind of delved into that. And that took me on a journey of really interesting things, personal discoveries of kind of that linked back to the gaming industry. So, I mean, let's talk about addiction for a second, yeah, in a wider context, and then maybe take a look at the microtransactions specifically. So, it's something I've been teaching during the courses and whatnot for a long time. I used to mention, when we were talking about revenue efficiency of slots, I used to mention machine zone, right? And I used to remember talking about machine zone and what machine zone is and so on and so forth. And I kind of always left it locked into the environment of slots. So to define it, there's a woman, an anthropologist at MIT. She's very, very good. I think she heads anthropology at MIT. And her name is Natasha Schul. I want to say Schultz, but it's not. It's Schul. Schul, with those two dots. Yeah?
Natasha Schul.
Natasha Schul. And she wrote a book called Addiction by Design. And in that book, she defined a state of being which is machine zone, in the zone. It's kind of the antithesis to flow. You know the state of flow when you're really productive? Well, this is kind of the dark side of the same thing, yeah, of the same coin. Where she went to Vegas for a decade, for 10 years, and she interviewed people playing slots. And she interviewed them for hours. And as obviously the machines became more and more digitalized and more eloquent in the way they reach out and the way they captivate the focus of a person, the interviews became more and more interesting. So she started realizing that I don't want to throw statistics out there, but I'm fairly confident that in her book she would write that 99% of slot players she has interviewed are there fully aware that they're not expecting to win. They just want to be in the zone. So she goes on to try and explain what this machine zone is, which is the state of being where I like how she explained it's a cadence, is a rhythmic resonance where we play an action, make a bet, then something happens, and then we make a bet and something not quite the same happens, and it's rhythmic and it moves. And as she studied this, I mean, it's obviously the book is wonderful to read. Honestly, if you haven't, I can recommend it. It's Addiction by Design, Natasha Schul. So she paired up with a dean of psychology, or the names escape me and the exact titles. And they had found out that we tend to do this to minimize anxiety, right? Which is interesting because to be anxious is to already be in a vulnerable state, right? So you're trying to minimize vulnerable states. So there were beautiful examples of when we used to do this as kids. You know, a lot of kids that are dreamers, that are in their head and they have, let's say, social interaction kind of problems. I wouldn't want to say problems, challenges during development would tend to escape into their mind, and they will count the steps on the way to school. They will count the number of leaves. They will they'll find a rhythmic cadence that would calm their mind, right? So that happens when you enter into a machine zone, and that is specifically the feeling you get when you will aimlessly browse Facebook, right? Have you ever caught yourself in this? I mean, I don't even know how it is. You know, you just kind of scroll, and it's just this mimic. And
never happened.
You know, that?
No, of course,
No,
of course. But it's kind of this state you're saying where you kind of get tunnel vision in a way you don't.
Yes, the thing is, you click. I mean, it happens to me. It happens to me. Funny enough, after high productivity zone, when I actually start feeling a bit burnt out, and I don't want to drop off yet. I want to go back to the topic. So I'll sit down and I'll just browse a bit, right? And I mean, that's kryptonite to me. I feel like that was one thing I had to cut out, because I click this photo and then, this guy was there with this one, and then click that. Oh, they did that. It's 1 hour. And where did it go? It was, and it felt calming during that time. I don't know if you recognize the feeling, but it kind of feels comforting but uncomfortable as well. So we have that.
Because you're losing the time
you're
from
losing
your
the
life.
time, right? You're losing the time,
Yeah.
and you kind of feel there's nothing productive coming out of it. But at the same time, while you're in the zone, all the ego, sense of self, monetary things, the fluidity of time, it disappears, right? And we need to look at that aspect of that trait we have as people, especially in this day and age, as engagement is the currency of today, right? And now look at that in form of addiction. So, you know, when we think of addiction in terms of gambling, it's people losing money, right? The old, I mean, I've been in the gaming industry since 2003, right? A long time. And, you know, from the early get-go, it was always the adage, you know, like, I've spent my daughter's Christmas presents, or I've done this. It was these drastic stories that would kind of resonate and echo. And it's the stories that the customer service departments will hear on Christmas Eves and so on. And I mean, they are real, you know, in the process of running a casino, you do come across them. And I think challenge is even to know which to believe, which to not, and to self-assess to see whether we do enough to prevent these things from happening, right? But they're always very drastic, and they're always monetarily oriented, right? So that's like kind of easy addiction. Easy to quantify addiction.
Because you're saying that like you can see that it's harmful addiction. Correct. by the loss of money.
Socially accepted standards.
Right? Exactly.
I lost my house.
Yeah, exactly.
I lost my mortgage.
That's harmful behavior,
right?
Obviously. Yeah,
and it's easy to understand, right? And it goes back through the old movies. It goes back through cultures. We're kind of brought up on the same, so it's easy to understand. Now apply the same on time, right? Say the same thing, right? I didn't spend an evening with my daughter on Christmas. Does it have the same impact? Does it carry the same weight? Not yet. It doesn't, right? It doesn't feel like it was okay. Just do it tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But actually tomorrow might not again, because now the currency of addiction is time. It's engagement.
Yeah, when we're talking about social media and microtransactional games, right?
Exactly.
That's what we. Yeah.
So we're going to the realm of social media, and we're going to the realm of mobile gaming. So I looked into this a bit. So it's something that you're aware, a story that I actually don't mind sharing because it was a lesson to me. I've done it in my classes. I used to whip up my phone and go, "This is a real email. This I received." At a point in my life, many things have happened. Many tumultuous things have happened. I didn't realize that I fell into Yeah, I mean, the fair statement is into a state of depression, right?
Mm.
Not noticeable, so you still go to work at 9 a.m. But like there's an echo in here, right? It's not even. It's very strange to pin down, especially if you're new to that state. You wouldn't know how to recognize it. So now I can speak about it, and so on. It's been years, but at the time I wouldn't know what was happening. It just felt off, like the need to escape from the world. So I sat down, and during the course of about 4 or 5 months, I've spent 70. It's been so long, I don't remember the exact number. I think $79,000.
Yeah.
It could be 74, but I feel it's $79,400 something dollars.
On microtransaction.
Playing a game called Guns of Glory. It wasn't even that great of a game.
79,000.
79,000 in a span
How-
of 3 months.
How is that possible?
Can I whip my phone out just to check?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right, so let's see this.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the company that did this
Yeah.
is called FunPlus, right? And then we're gonna talk about me trying to get out of this. In fact, I think the email that I'm looking for FunPlus is shut my account now. I'm going to sue you. God, I don't know if I can swear. It was.
Swear, we're not on a cable network here. That's okay.
I want to cancel my subscription for signing up. 9 emails it took. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
I couldn't close my account.
Okay.
So eventually, after threatening to claim money from Google and to go public, the solution they had given me was to open another account and then link my main Google email, my Play Store account, to this new throwaway account, and then kind of forget the password. I had to hack the system. There was no way to block myself from purchasing. So the email says.
Yeah. So compare that to, I mean, the iGaming industry, where you know, imagine if a site told you, no, you're not allowed to close your account.
No, you can't. You can't draw this comparison. You can't. Like literally, they are worlds apart. And then you have to take a look at the figures. You have to take a look at the numbers, the revenue derivatives from here.
Yeah.
So the email says, FunPlus support, blah, blah. Hello, Musketeer. I was a Musketeer. Thank you for contacting us, blah, blah. Our advice to you is to create a throwaway account and bind the game so you can unbind your real account from the game. Regarding the purchase history so far, you have spent $79,402 in this account.
Under how long did this went on for, approximately time?
3 months.
3 months. So when we talk about the currency here, we are talking about 3 months of life, basically.
We're talking about 3 months of life. We're talking about complete detachment from reality. So I obviously at the time needed a channel of detachment, right? And that was just there. And what was incredulous to me, I mean, in retrospect, right? At the time, I just realized I was angry to spend 8. Thankfully, it wasn't something that impacted my life in any grandiose way. You know, blessed really, because you know you could have. I mean, 80,000 can make somebody's all the difference in somebody's life.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
It's years of salaries, right? In my case, it was sort of, I was angry that it was spent, and I was angry at the lack of self-discipline, and I was completely I didn't have the tools yet to understand what was happening mentally, right? It took some time for me to kind of understand what was happening. They got to that. But during that time, I would play a game, and it would be 8 p.m. at night, and I would need to get I would need to get a chest or a vest or some sort of, you know, you had the heroes and you attacked other castles, the usual kind of Clash of Clans type of stuff, right? And I would have to equip my hero so I can win against some other castles and whatnot. And I would spend $99.99 to get the diamond chest, right? The best of the best, right? And then look at the levels. Look at the levels of financial extraction here. So first of all, you have the the design of gamification, right? Click, click, everything's free, everything moves fast, very interesting games. It's almost like you're playing Command or Conquer or some RPG game. It really gets you going, and you're building your character and you're winning easily, and there's a complete gamification area to that just sucks you in. Oh, wow, great. And it's free. Right?
Yeah.
It's free.
It's free.
So then you go on to, now you've built to level 5, level 6, and now other players can attack you, whichever, whatever the usual structure of a game is, there's many like it. And now you have to build defenses, right? And now it's going to take 8 hours to do this. Now look what line you cross. So first of all, we talked about machine zone. So you're there, you're gamified. You're clicking, you're moving, you're in the zone. And now you have to wait 60 seconds. Okay?
So the currency is now becoming time.
Time, and you feel it. 60 seconds, okay.
Yeah, you have to wait.
Okay, maybe I can do something else. Okay, collect the elixirs. Collect the elixir. Okay, I'm done. Yeah. 30 seconds. Okay, cool. And now I can do upper level again. If I buy $2.99, I'll jump. $2.90. It's $2.99. Right, it's €2.99. What's $2.99? Or 99 cents, whichever. So buy that, right? And it's very engineered. It's very, very strictly designed with intent, right? I mean, I come from a gambling background. You can see the user journey. You can see the type of marketing going on, right? Going, for just only 99 cents, or do this for just, so. From the terminology and text to the presentation to the finances to the algorithms that were calculated. If my average was $99.99 to buy whatever diamonds or elixirs or whatever I needed to buy, I will never see a $49.99 chest anymore. It will never show it to me, or a $2.99 or a $16. And they had.
It keeps increasing by time.
If my average is up, they will never drop it down. It's the first thing I'm going to see. Any special offers that are for, it's very well engineered. So anyway, so you're there, you're already in machine zone, you're waiting now, and you're being goaded to spend certain amount of money, and you do, right? And you do again. And if you are wealthy, if you are well off, then especially then the currency loses value, right? And you're just going there. So we get to a place where it's 8 p.m, and I want to get this chest of, whichever the best chest there was, and you can't buy it. You can't spend $5,000. No. Because one, then it's not a microtransaction, and two, I think. Well, if I wanted to design it as cruelly as I could, I wouldn't want anyone to put a value on an item, right? It has to feel randomized, and it has to feel very vague as to how much it can possibly cost. So you will open a chest that will have pieces of an item, right? And then you'll have to collect a certain number of those pieces and buy and buy and buy again until you can put it together. Now, in that process, what you've actually just done is bought 100 items in $99.99 instead of the 10, 15 you actually needed because of the randomizer effect. And you kind of feel either lucky or not, and there's this compulsion happening, right? So here we have the whole world of microtransactions, where we also have to put a pin in the fact that we're calling €100 spent a microtransaction. Call of Duty doesn't cost 100, right? Exactly. Or Witcher 3, or pick any PlayStation game, FIFA, right? We're calling that a microtransaction.
Yeah.
And so far I'm still on the developer side of things, right? There's the economies, the fact that I will get the best possible armor, and then next week they'll just release a new one. Right, and the entire economy is it's not rooted in any form of reality. It just keeps you chasing. So now we bring in Google into the picture, right? So from Google's side, there was never any point of, hey, you're spending money.
No.
Opposite. hey, we noticed you've purchased 5.99.99 transactions in the last 30 seconds. Would you want to remove your password? So I don't have to put in the password, the fingerprint.
So to make it easier.
To make it easier.
Yeah.
So I'm there at 9 p.m. now. I'm like on my sofa and I'm buying stupid elixirs. I'm not speaking to my girlfriend. I'm like, I'm not even realizing the depths of like a downward spiral, which you're not even conscious of at that point in time, but you found your outlet, right? And it has you in the zone, and the zone must go on.
Yeah, because
so
you get more and more committed to this
game
as well, right?
Absolutely, and now I'm 20 in the hole.
Yeah.
And there's a guy that's bigger and better. In fact, I've met a guy that was a gambler in Asia and so on. There was a German guy, there was an Asian, like there's a community of us. Start chatting, and very quickly a community of people that can afford to spend that much money to get so high in the game, kind of starts communicating what do you do in life and so on. And all of these people are gamblers. So when I came, I genuinely felt shy to say I run an online gambling firm, right? I was genuinely shy to say that because these people are gamblers. I couldn't, in fact I didn't. I kind of kept it to myself. Yeah. And that was, I think, the first point of a reality check. Like, why am I ashamed? Why am I associating this with gambling, right? Where is this coming from? Because I'm playing a game, but this game just took 20 grand off me, right? So Google comes in and goes, would you like to remove your passwords? Yes, of course, please. Yeah. Just press that button faster. I can buy 20 chests. And then we get to the next level where this is pure addiction. This is not pure compulsion, where I'll max out my normal debit card. So I'll pull out my platinum. So now on the receiving end, there's a player that's putting 2, 3, 4 cards, right, in play. No checks, no AML, no source of funds. Forget even about the money laundering and the anti-terrorist, money funneling. From a player protective point, there was no stop loss, no check, right? And why should there be? So if you consider the industry of the microtransactions of the games, that industry collected about 65 billion. It may be dollars, I want to say euros, but it's about 65 billion in 2019, and in 2020 it was almost 77, 78 billion.
Wow. Massive.
Right? Online gaming globally, it depends which report you read, but all reports agree on 44 to 55. So some say 53, some, right? For 2019, entirety, so we're talking all of desktop, all of sportsbook, all of online gaming. So when you search for, Google it now, if you're listening, online gambling global revenue, right? Worldwide online gambling revenue. It will pop somewhere at about 55 billion. Right?
And here we're talking like 80 plus billion.
We're talking 65 for the same year, 80 billion for the year after. I'm not sure what parallel online gambling. But we're talking about 100 billion euros, dollars, whatever, a year. So take a look at Apple and Google here. That's 25 billion in revenue.
Yeah, because they have 35% of all that revenue.
I thought it was 25, but it's 35.
25 or 35, but they obviously without any formal commitments or whatever.
So this is what Fortnite took Apple on, right?
Yeah.
Because they said, hey...
Fortnite, Spotify as well.
Yeah, 25% is just unfair and so on, and especially if Apple has Apple Music, which you kind of see the point. 25% of revenue is a massive cut.
Yeah, just to host it on the store.
Right. It's also probably the reason why you don't really see Apple Pay for gambling transactions. You can't really deposit with Apple Pay. You would need to put in your card. And I would imagine that is because most gambling companies have a hold of not more than 40%, 45. Yeah. So that's 50% of your entire revenue just cut on a paying your payment gateway instead of 1.5 that you usually would pay, right? Yeah. So you're looking at 25% for these platforms to put these games on. The nature of these games are Flappy Bird and Candy Crush and, some zombies or whatever your kick is. You know, not all of them will milk you dry, but many will. And if you peruse your Facebook or Instagram or whichever feed, generally game ads will pop up. In fact, can't exactly remember. I think it's about 240, 250 billion.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a comment in the chat here that Supercell, the company that makes Clash of Clans and other games, made 2.1 billion euro on free games.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can somebody also draw a comparison of what Betson did the same year?
Yeah, exactly. What's the revenue of Betson Group?
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's
or even William Hill and these guys. I mean, William Hill made, I think, close to similar to that.
Yeah,
like
something
2 billion
like that. I would want to say below 2 bill.
Yeah.
I would want to say couple of years ago they were going 1.2, 1.4 billion. So let's say they go right. I mean, we are talking about unregulated, completely, not even on the horizon. So when we talk about regulation, this isn't even on the horizon for the coming years.
Exactly. And that's, right? I think, is the foundation of the discussion here today.
Yes.
The difference between the two.
The difference between the two. So look, if you look at us as a gaming industry, we have been, I want to be honest, man, we've been slapped around. We've been slapped around in the last decade. And it started out of fear. And this is, I'm personally against regulation. Not because we shouldn't regulate behavior. It's because of the way that regulation is regulated. Just our politicians are not fit for purpose. And those politicians hire government establishments that are likewise not really fit for purpose. And that's evidenced through every single regulatory zone that has been established over time. You know, you can draw 1,000 examples from UKGC and Swedish regulation and over-regulation and people now having to report transactions that are now becoming insane, counter to the normal user experience, right? So what has happened in our industry, we got the stigma of the gambler, we got the stigma of the addiction, the online gaming rose to the forefront, you couldn't ignore it anymore, and now we need to talk about, as much as you had to talk about, was that my phone? my phone was listening to us. Right?
Exactly.
So you're looking, as much as you needed to talk about shops being close to schools, you can't have a gambling shop within 100 meters of school. Now we had to kind of talk about online gambling. It's everywhere. So how are we going to protect the people, right? And then it's almost like playing one up to a point where we needed some regulation. I mean, most companies self-regulated. Let's be completely clear about this. Most good, solid, long-term gaming companies self-regulated long before they needed to regulate. It makes no sense to squeeze a player out to the point of him putting down his mortgage. It makes no sense. It reduces the morale of customer services department and people that have to listen to those calls. A player at a certain point in time has surpassed their value, their maximum output value. You can see the increased volatility, the number of increased angry chats and calls and so on. It's counterproductive to keep marketing and persisting on that player. A successful company won't do that. And in fact, a successful company will very often protect itself and its revenue flow from a nice stable stream. That 99% of machine zone players that kind of know they're there to just lose or to enjoy the time. And we've had a system where I think the balance was struck on a number of firms, and then the regulation kicks in, and all of a sudden you have to follow these kind of rules and laws that you're not sure about. Carry that over to the microtransaction. Draw a direct parallel. For me, it's hard. I've actually tried. One is monetary value, the other one is time. So by the time that this hits the radar of the congresses of the world and so on, and the politicians of the world who would want to start drafting regulation, we'll need to understand, we'll have to perceive addiction in a different way, right? We'll have to, you'll see the Zuckerbergs of this world talking about how their algorithms are designed to captivate your time and why you can't, what's the number. I don't know if, has anyone asked the question of Facebook how many times people tried to quit Facebook and came back?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
right?
There should be studies on that, I would hope.
So we'll have to look at addiction differently. We'll have to reassess what addiction is and how we quantify it, because engagement is the new currency. Time is the new currency of engagement, since we are the product.
Yes.
Funny, we're the consumers and the product at the same time.
Yeah.
And only from that point we can start asking the right questions. And we're drawing a parallel to an industry. I mean, yes, can gaming contribute? Enormously so, right? Should it? Well, you're not gonna see Apple or Google jump on the bandwagon going, "Hey, come help us solve this." Like, there's way too much revenue, and it's completely wild west out there.
So you can't really expect that an authority like Apple or Google will, because they are becoming a bit of an authority. We saw them now kicking off Parler from their platform, which is the political social media app that was right leaning. That was a big decision, but it doesn't drive the same revenue as, for example, the Clash of Clans or Angry Birds or whatever we do. It obviously cuts into the EBITDA of the organization, right? So how can you trust an organization like that? Just before we continue here, Igor, I want to ask the studio if we can have another 10 minutes, because in reality our time is up right now. But I hope the chat doesn't mind. I hope the people don't mind if we go on for another 10 minutes. Is that okay? That's okay. Okay, thank you, Richard, and the other guys backstage, and hope you guys have patience with us here. But let's use the last 10 minutes here and Igor and talk a little bit more about. We come from the iGaming industry, and we are raised in an industry that is regulated to some extent. It's become more regulated now, obviously, in the last couple of years, and you can argue if it's over-regulated and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, I think we can all agree that we need to protect the harmful players from their own addictive behavior. So then the question becomes, on the microtransactional games, should they be regulated? Should Clash of Clans, should they also be regulated to the same extent, so to say, as the gaming industry? And we as an industry, we aren't blameless, obviously, and there's been many bad situations that are caused by the organizations that we represent, right? But in the end of the day, I think on an individual level, I think everyone in the industry, more or less, would like to be in a spot where the industry understands how we can protect our players for real, right? And if there's one industry that understands that, it's the people from our industry. So we talked just about, you mentioned that there isn't even on the horizon any discussions of regulating the microtransactional games or this harmful behavior, or social media for that matter, the infinite scrolling. So could I even make the argument that if anyone is going to open the door to propose a regulation to the microtransactional industry, maybe it is the iGaming industry that needs to put on the hero cape here and use the experience that we've had from the thousands of years of gambling to actually take the first step and propose something or to drive something forward. Am I being too romantic?
I think you underestimate capitalism. If there was a couple of CEOs of gaming companies listening to this and they just Googled the figures and realized that they can make more money with less regulation, they'll jump on the bandwagon. But yes, I think you're right. I think that when the time comes, the experience of player protection will be drawn from online gambling. They won't have a choice. They won't have a choice but to turn to the industry that they have. That's, I feel a bit dramatic that they have oppressed for so long, right? With over-regulation. There's no choice but to turn to gambling, right? Because gambling understands addiction.
Yes.
In fact, there's something that you've mentioned just now. You said, we aren't blameless. No, we're not. For every good company I've mentioned that does self-regulate, there was 100 companies that back in the 90s offered 1,000% sign-up bonus, right? 10 times the money you deposit, and they would effectively design the engagement package in a way that you lose your deposited money and your bonus and so on. There are a lot of bad companies around that wouldn't pay players and so on and so forth. There's many examples of poor business practices, but I believe that's in any industry, especially one that's just forming and morphing and growing. We're 20 years old. Started at the end of 90s.
Yes.
We are entering our third decade, right? So I think that we morphed and settled and stabilized and found the balance very, very quickly. And I believe that was also contributed to the fact that we had to rinse ourselves of the stigma of gambling. We, in order to survive and sustain our industry, bring our industry into the mainstream, we had to move away from the stigma of gambling and enter into the realm of entertainment.
Exactly.
Right? And that was a job on us to do. Nobody else could do that for us. Everything else was against us because we carried that stigma. And I think we actually have done that quite successfully. And I honestly bring that, people feel confident when things are regulated, but I do believe that the industry itself has done that. Here, you're selling pink elixirs with bubbles and cute characters, mate. There's no stigma here. There's no stigma.
Everything is
right?
pink and fluffy.
Everything is pink and
everything's
fluffy.
Okay here. Just buy a little bit more. Yeah, you get another
bunny. It reminds you of that meme of the cute dog on fire going, everything's fine here. The house is on fire, right?
Exactly.
Well, that's literally it.
With the coffee cup. This is fine.
This is fine. Everything's fine. So there's this underlining issue that doesn't look like an issue. It's not talked about as an issue. It's offered by a duopoly, right? And it brings them an average, between them, it brings about 25 billion in revenue, pure profit.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I don't even want to say 25 billion in revenue. 25 billion in gross profit, because there are no variable costs. They don't have to market the games. They don't have to produce the games. They just have to put them on the App Store. And the developers will buy the ads and spend 250 billion a year in advertising. I mean, even that, 200. Then I don't know whether you can advertise on App Stores and whatnot, but then you have all of that advertising funneling to the Instagram, Facebook, and social media. What chunk of social media ad revenue comes from Flappy Bird? Well, Clash of Clans, Supercell, right? It's an incredibly powerful industry that hasn't targeted, kids. You see, kids play video games. No. Yeah. It targets grown-ups, people that just, at this moment in time, I think we have entered an age, we have been in an age where we need these distractions, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I would like to add to that point as well, that there's another parallel to this as well, to take it even further, that kids are playing microtransactional games too, and there's been news stories where kids are spending enormous amount of money on their mother's cards. This is the distinction between gambling, because if you were here, if you would read a news story of a 10-year-old kid playing online gambling, that would blow up in the entire country if it was Sweden, for example. Of course,
but not this.
No.
This would just. The thing is, so even asking for a chargeback on a transaction is a painful process. So I can't tell you for App Store. I don't use Apple. I can tell you not for long, but I can tell you about Play Store, and it was painfully difficult. I became curious, right? I come from the gaming business, and I'm saying, all right, I've just blown 80 grand. Everybody just shoved me along. Could we make it easier for you, sir? I've used multiple personal cards. And there was no way for me to help myself and stop this, right? Even when I attempted. So let me put my online gaming hat on and say, I want my money back, right? So I email Google and I say, okay, so I feel that I was addicted to this game. I'd like to see my options in claiming funds back. No response. There's no one you can speak to. You write right into the nether, right? There's no echo chamber, complete echo chamber. Then I researched a lot of help articles on how I can ban a certain app. You can't ban an app from charging. So you can put a password on, but you can't say, I don't want to play this game. I want to ban Clash of Clans so they can't bill me money. There's no option. We're talking about the most basic tools are still a mess and will be a mess for a while. But to answer your question, should it be regulated? Yes, I'm right, it should.
But the culture pressure,
that's the
it's
thing.
what is lagging behind here, right?
That's the thing.
Because I think the difference here as well, to make a distinction between the gaming industry and microtransactional games, is that most people have played microtransactional games and they do it for fun, right? So there's not a problem to them. Let's say 99% of people who play. And in the iGaming industry, a small percent of the population play online gambling, which means that most people who don't play, they view it with stigma.
Correct.
Right? Because they don't understand perhaps that 99% of our industry is as well harmless gambling.
Yes.
So there's a difference here, right? Where, you know, the cultural impact on these games is not really anything that is impacting on us on an individual level, because we don't personally see it as a problem.
Correct. I mean, I think we'll get to a place. So I think that you're right. And I also think that we've systemically been choked out of the voice in the ability to express that there's a problem. You see, there's nobody to turn to. We are in a duopoly, so it really is a question where we need to wait for this to kind of simmer and kind of come on its own to the surface, before you see one article, two articles, and then there's a movement, and then there's usually what happens is, oh my God, a bang, and then overregulation.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
But
a wolf in sheep clothing. Isn't that the case?
It is.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Igor, thank you so much for sharing this today's. It's a very, very relevant topic, and you know you're one of my best friends. We've been talking about this on our hikes from time to time, and I was really excited to have this conversation today, actually, with you. And again, just to close things off today, I think that if there's anyone who's going to open this conversation, it is the iGaming industry. I don't know how, I don't know in what way, but we are the ones who have the experience in this regard. We can clearly see the issue
when the
here.
time comes, we will be an active participant.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so to close things off today, I mean, you know, maybe the iGaming industry is like Bruce Wayne, Batman, the hero that we. What did I say? The hero that we need, but the hero that they don't deserve. Right?
Yeah, the hero that they need, but the hero that they don't deserve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it is.
Thank you so much, Igor, for today. And I want to also mention thank you everyone for tuning in today to this Power Hour. It's been absolutely brilliant to see all the comments, all the chat here. I didn't have too much time to have a look at the chat here as we were talking. It's just very interesting to hear you, Igor. But I would like to also thank the previous speakers of today, our wonderful partners who made this possible today, BDO and EvenBet, and again, everyone who tuned in today. I'm gonna go through the chat here now afterwards and read through again. And yeah, wish you all a great weekend, and wish you a great weekend as well, Igor.
Likewise.
Good to see you here, buddy. Always a pleasure, man.
Always.
Thank you, everybody. Howdy ho.
Bye bye.